right, welcome everyone. We're excited to see you all joining today's UNDC event. Today we are continuing the Digital Spotlight series, a format that we have initiated to showcase the many ways in which digital technologies and capabilities drive impact across various program areas. By the way, if you are working in digital in a field that you think should be spotlight next, then please let us know. Our contact is in the chat. It's digital@un.org. Before we kick things off, though, just a quick reminder on the context of the community. As always, we are part of the UN 2.0 initiative, and as digital, which is one of the key priorities, this community is all about exploring digital programming across the UN and connecting with digital practitioners. There are knowledge communities for each of the UN 2.0 areas, so we do encourage you to check them out as well. We'll also put the link to that in the chat. And to kick off today's session, I want to give you an overview of our agenda. We will start with 3 fantastic speakers. We are honored to be joined by Hélène Molinière, Senior Advisor on Digital Gender Equality at UN Women, and she will speak about bridging the digital gender gap in digital access and skills, as well as digital governance. Following her is Stephanie Mickel from the UN Population Fund. She will present a few insights on gender safety and gender-based violence. And then lastly, we are very excited to have an expert from outside the UN system with us, Caitlin Kraft-Buchman, who is the co-founder of the A+ Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms, and she joins us to speak about the importance of investing in feminist technology and innovation. This is only the first 20 minutes of the session, and then afterwards we will open the expo segment, which I will explain more about then. But we are joined by 3 amazing colleagues who will present their digital showcases related to gender equality. We'll present them later, so for now I just want to welcome Aisha Kaluba, Noor Malik, Sahil Kapoor, and Caroline Mazbungi. And we will close the session with 2 very brief but exciting announcements from UNICEF and ITU. And with that, I want to get started and hand over to Hélène for our first speaker segment. Welcome, and over to you, Hélène.
Thank you so much, Julia. A pleasure to be with you today. And to be with this fantastic panel of friends and colleagues. So I will briefly touch upon 2 things, as you mentioned in my presentation. Maybe start by giving everyone kind of the basis of understanding what we mean by gender digital divide, especially what are the strategies to bridging it, and then diving a bit deeper into how do we integrate and prioritize these strategies into digital governance. So you can move to the next 2 slides. So some of the work that we've done at UN Women on this topic has been, I don't see the slides moving, but...
Yeah, 1 second, I believe.
Okay, oh, that's fine.
No, sorry, that was me. Okay, I think you see...
It's fine, you can go to the next one. So awesome. A lot of work has been developed at UN Women, but also been developed by a large ecosystem of partners, many of them UN partners, and many of them being members, as you mentioned, Julia, of the Action Coalition on Technology Innovation for Gender Equality that was launched in 2021 at a Generation Equality Forum in Paris. And so the idea with this coalition was to really try to identify what were the foundations, really the foundations needs for defining what is the gender digital divide, try to identify pathways and really concrete action and commitment that could be made by partners to bridge that divide and to generate political engagement from all kinds of stakeholders. And that was extremely useful reflection that happened. We developed a blueprint, and this blueprint was used as the basically as the foundation of another very important work that happened in 2023. That was the Commission on the Status of Women that was on the topic of technology innovation. It was the first time since this commission existed that the topic of technology was being reviewed, and so it really helped set the foundation on what we mean by the divide and what member states and the ecosystem of partners should be doing to address it. I've put some links here, lots of amazing expert paper that provide deep dives on many subjects that can be found on that topic. I'll just provide a quick overview in the next slide of basically what were the reflection and what were the results we had at CSW. What we first try to reflect is that when we talk about gender digital divide, it's multifaceted. It's not just access, it's not just women in tech or skill or women in STEM. It's a multitude of issues. And just to give a few data, it is reflected in who owns digital devices, especially mobile phones, when we see that women in the world are 12% less likely to own a mobile phone than men, and that's a figure that has been bulging much in the last couple of years. We also see that women and girls are 25% less likely than men to have the knowledge and the skills to leverage digital technology for just basic purposes. We see that women occupy less than 1/3 of position in technology, and that in that sector, it's a sector that's particularly unequal in terms of gender pay gap, that is at 21% in that sector. Experience of workplace harassment, that is also at 48%, very high for this sector. We see that in terms of new technology, emerging technology, such as machine learning, AI, women are really underrepresented as employees, as authors or professor, as researcher, as app developer. So this is something that has been chronic since many years. That is improving in some countries, but that is also getting worse in some others. We also see this divide reflected in the investment and the funding that is channeled to women, especially, for example, women-led startups are receiving less than 2% of venture capital funding, and that's also a number that hasn't budged for many years. And finally, and I won't delve into that because I know that Stephanie is going to talk about technology-facilitated violence, but also the CSW was also a moment to really reflect on the scale and on the and on pervasive technology facilitated gender-based violence was, and the impact it had on women's life, on women also, especially women in the public eye, on their ability to share their voices, opinion, to lead, and also all the risks of specific violence and harassment and abuse that is linked to it. Next one. And so this was also a moment to try to collectively reflect on, what had worked and what had not worked. And I think when we talk about what are the solutions and how can we bridge, it's really important to look at that. In terms of access, what is really important is that for very long, we saw that there was a tendency of thinking that the use of digital tools and services increases when there is universal access. We saw in lots of programming or in lots of policy that the focus was on connectivity, and that with connectivity, everyone will benefit equally. And so what we saw is that, unfortunately, as predicted, it was not the case. If you look at least developed countries, 60% of the population living in these countries are covered by broadband. However, only 25% are online. So there's a huge gap between the opportunity and the actual use. And then for those who are online, men are being 52% more likely to be actually able to use internet. So it shows that improvement in infrastructure alone is not sufficient when we want to improve access, and so we need to look at many other factors that are critical. And for each of these factors, there are gender social norms that are at play. Whether we look at the affordability, at the skills, at the safety, at the relevance of the contents, agency and awareness about digital tools and application, or just basic, access to electricity or privacy. Another important misconception when we talk about competencies is that we also need to be very careful when we try to focus on digital literacy, on STEM education, and there have been too many projects that are focusing on fixing women, in the sense that we've heard so much that, oh, but women or young women or girls are less interested in math or in technology than boys and men. And so we really try to showcase that the approach we have to adopt is an approach where we change the environment. When we look at the education system, when we look at the family environment, at social norms, stereotypes, so that we don't just focus program on getting women more interested, but on making the environment around them much more welcoming for them to thrive in these areas. In the interest of time, I'll move on the two others, but very quickly, just to say that we also mentioned that we need to look at the design of technology and move away from gender neutral design. And we also need to make sure that every time there's a new topic or emerging technology that comes up that are starting to be discussed in the governance area, we need to make sure that we don't just focus on the technical, but we also focus on societal impact and social aspects. All right, and so the framework that we develop and that we recommend to use, and that's the next one for any program or policy work around the gender digital divide, is to make sure that these multifaceted aspects are being all taken into account, because they're all self-reinforcing. You cannot look at access, at design, at ecosystem or safety in a vacuum. And so the idea is to say that for access, you have to look at economic constraints, you have to look at social norms, you have to look at obviously digital literacy, but on top of looking at the infrastructure and accessibility of connectivity. For ecosystem, what we try to recommend is that when you roll out a digital service, you cannot roll it out in a vacuum. There is a whole environment that needs to be taken into account, and so equally, when you are doing digital policy, you have to look at this broader ecosystem approach. You have to look at skills, you like to look at consumer protection, you have to look at entrepreneurship, financial inclusion, job creation. This is a whole package, and not just, again, look at access to tool. On design, what we try to really advocate for, it's not just design, it's how do you integrate gender in the design phase, in the development phase, in the deployment phase. And so obviously what we need is more women to be empowered as creator of technology and not just be seen as user. But what we also need is more teams that are looking at technical and social aspects of technology together, to have more multidisciplinary approach. We need more women on technology teams, but it's not the job of women in the team to bring that gender aspect. It's really, we need to recognize that this is a skill, that is a competence, that's something that everyone needs to be bringing, so that we design technology that is using human rights standards and norms, and that focus on transparency and accountability, and have the specific tools such like gender impact assessments or gender impact audits that are embedded into them. And then finally on TFGBV, I'll be quick on that one. But again, I think it was CSW was really key moment to elevate the urgency of taking action on that topic and to show that we need greater political action and responsibility from the private sector to make progress. All right, next one. Thank you, Julia. On the next one, I'll be moving to the digital governance aspect of things. And so I had this quote that it's from 2 years ago from our Secretary General, but that unfortunately ends up being a bit prophetic and didn't edge well. But it's to show that, you know, we've been seeing the trends for many years of how the issue of technology, the issue of concentration of power, the issue of inequality in accessing what, you know, has really been a game changer for so many to have access to basic resources. How these issues are interrelated, and that we've really missed an opportunity in not taking action, I think, before in really having a strong advocacy call to have the issue of gender linked to a lot of the other digital work that was happening. And so what we did last year was to do a position paper to help really take the knowledge that was shared at CSW to help with the development of the the Global Digital Compact. And the idea here was to push for two things, and really a dual approach where we would try to replicate the approach we had with the SDGs, which is to have SDG 5, that is a standalone pillar, but also to have gender mainstream across all the SDGs. And so this is what we recommend as an approach for any digital governance structure, to have one pillar that looks at GBV, looks at education and economic opportunities, and look at leadership and participation. This is something that everyone should look at, whether you are developing governance framework for cybersecurity, for AI, for virtual reality tools, for blockchain. This is the middle ground, and this is the principle that needs to be there. And then, of course, in the next slide, we explain that once you have these three fundamentals covered, there are still many more opportunities to mainstream gender in specific technical topics. And so the paper provides example on, you know, how you can dig deeper for mainstreaming gender in data protection, in AI, in working on open source and digital common, etc. Next one. And so we manage, again, as a collective, because it's really a whole ecosystem of partners that rise up to try to advocate and to make sure that the GDC, which is really one of the first key governance documents to be produced by the UN, didn't miss the opportunity to have gender in it. And so gender was incorporated in two parts of the Summit of the Future outcome documents: the Pact for the Future, in the chapter 3, that really replicates a lot of the recommendation we made in the paper, and then in the GDC itself, where we managed to have gender equality recognized as a principle, as we mentioned, but also mainstream throughout the text, especially asking for gender responsive strategies, the need to address the barriers to access and use, to invest in capacity building, in STEM education, data, sex-segregated data, and of course, TFGBV. On my last slide, I'd like to mention the next challenge, because we've done great work collectively to get this global framework. But now what we need is to really see how we can help to have that translated at national level. If you look at the Global Index on Responsible AI, they looked at 138 countries to see how gender was integrated in the national framework. Only 24 mentioned gender aspect, and only 18 of them actually had significant reference and references that were meaningful with regard to gender and AI. If you look at national ICT plans, ITU also did a review. Out of 85 plans, only 46 mention gender, and out of these 46, only a few really do it in a meaningful way. And again, today we see that, again, when there is an emerging topic, it's still a challenge to get gender out there. In the GDC, the two chapters where we are missing gender reference are DPI and AI, the two up new coming topics. And same thing, last year there was the International Convention on Cybercrime, and women and girls are not mentioned in it. So it's an uphill battle, and we hope that we will continue fight on that. And on my last slide, what I want to show is that it's a battle to fight on both sides. We need to really try to see how we better integrate gender in digital, but also all the staff working on gender equality, we also have to be better at integrating digital in our work. And so that's why this year, as we commemorate the Beijing Plus 30 agenda, we have included bridging the digital divide as one of the 6 priorities we want the world to focus on in the next 5 years to accelerate progress. Thanks a lot. Sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
It
That's okay. Thank you, Hélène. We will continue straight on with our speaker segment, and I'm going to hand over to Stephanie to share her screen and share a bit about gender-based violence.
Yes, thank you. So first, I would like to thank you for organizing this event today, UNDP, ITU, UN Innovation Network, for putting together this discussion on the role of digital transformation and how it can play in achieving gender equality. For those who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Mickelson. I'm a TF-GBV specialist at UNFPA, of course, the Reproductive and Sexual Health Agency with a core mandate to eliminate gender-based violence. This, of course, includes violence facilitated by technology. We are an organization that, from last count, operates in 150 countries and contexts worldwide, and has been around for nearly 60 years. When our organization started work on TF-GBV, or tech-facilitated gender-based violence, over 5 years ago, we did so with the recognition that this wasn't about looking at only harms that are done by others, but also about being thoughtful and conscious to ensure that we, as an organization, are not causing harm as well through our own technology development, in particular around data collection, management, privacy, and security. Just as a reminder, gender-based violence offline affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. We also know that technology-facilitated gender-based violence includes online harassment and gendered misinformation, which impact women significantly more than men, with studies finding that nearly 4 in 10 women on the internet have been personally affected, and almost 9 in 10 have witnessed online violence against another woman. Those from marginalized and intersection identities, of course, are even more at greater risk. We're talking about the adolescent girl whose explicit images are shared without consent, the LGBTI plus community individuals who face heightened surveillance in countries hostile to their community, and the women whose synthetic images altered to remove her veil is exploited for profit. Root causes of TF-GBV are the same as GBV: harmful social norms and patriarchal societal beliefs that lead to the suppression of women in the form of violence, physical violence, emotional violence, economic abuse. In a technological age, these power dynamics and abuse are played out with the aid or facilitation of technology in the form of private and public messages, location tracking, and deepfakes. Online harassment and misinformation disproportionately affect women, particularly those in public-facing roles, such as politicians, journalists, and human rights defenders. 73% of women journalists worldwide experience online violence in the course of their work. This targeted harassment or gendered misinformation often leads to self-censorship or withdrawal from professional spaces online. And we're seeing this even more now in the context of the anti-gender ideological movements that are playing out online and offline. Unregulated digital spaces have enabled the spread of misogynistic ideologies and gender disinformation. Tech companies and platforms inadvertently or even deliberately fuel online environments hostile to advancing gender equality. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are many emerging and promising solutions to TFGBV, not only in the traditional forms of preventing gender-based violence through social media change programs, but also through digital literacy training and GBV frontline service providers and GBV training for developing technology. Technology also has the potential to be transformative and a force for good. Figuring out how to build safer technology with proper guardrails and go, no-go criteria is critical to addressing TFGBV. In an attempt to bridge this enormous gap between the gender-based violence community and the technology industry, we developed UNFPA's guidance on safe and ethical use of technology and addressing GBV and harmful practices. This guidance emphasizes the importance of finding common ground and collaboration between technologists and development practitioners to create ethical, safe technology through the entire design lifecycle, ensuring that it does not put women and girls at harm. Technology places gender at the center and is a crucial solution for mitigating TFGBV. This guidance translates and presents a combined framework for GBV ethical data standards, mHealth, and data ethics in order for there to find common ground among GBV practitioners and technologists. In this guidance, there are 6 core GBV principles as shown on the slide, and 10 data-specific principles. There are also 17 steps on how to implement this guidance and diagrams on GBV risk frameworks, as well as threat actor mapping. We at UNFPA have been working to bring this guidance and accompanying assessment tool to life. We recently worked with the UK FCDO, Australia's eSafety, and the New Moon Fund to pilot the guidance, as well as discover and promote promising technology products that are grounded in gender equality and inclusion as key strategies to prevent and respond to TFGBV. Last week, the creators, founders of these amazing products shared their rigorous processes, highlighting how they placed gender at the core of their design and development while prioritizing safety, security, and privacy, ensuring diverse voices shaped solutions that not only create opportunities and joy for women in all of their diversity, but also mitigate the risks of TFGBV. It was really inspiring and heartening to see this impressive tech and AI innovations platformed at the Safety Showcase, including multilingual chatbots supporting GBV providers, AI-powered domestic abuse risk assessment tools for frontline services, apps tackling campus violence, and sexual and reproductive health apps that really prioritize privacy and data protection. The Safety Showcase unearthed a realm of opportunity across the community of feminist technologists, incubators, and co-creators. Women were really at the heart of each of these tech solutions, creating, designing, leading, testing, using. Now, this Safety Showcase was actually coming off of the back of our 3rd TFGBV Global Symposium. This year, it was co-hosted by Global Affairs Canada, the Association for Progressive Communication, with the support and direction of over 35 TFGBV organizations. This year's 2-day symposium was a place where we brought 500 participants online and in person to not only discuss the current state of the rapidly expanding issue of TFGBV, but to create a space for collective action. This community is tired of discussing what are ready really to move on to the how and when. We cannot get caught up in talking about the problem to those who will never listen and waste our breath and money trying to convince people that women and girls deserve to equally enjoy technology and live free of violence online and offline. Instead, we really must focus on building trust, creating safe solutions, and supporting each other before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this input, Stephanie. I think there's lots to comment and many questions to be asked there, but I want to hand over to Caitlin first because we are on a bit of a tight deadline, or I mean tight agenda for today's event. So I'm handing over to you, Caitlin.
Fabulous. If you put my slides up, I'm ready to go. Great. We can just go exactly right there. Hi, everybody. Just want you to know I run and founded Women at the Table, which has a variety of NGOs that we've spun out, one of which is the A+ Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms, which is a civil society leader of the Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality Action Coalition that UN Women leads and directs. As well as I had the honor of being the co-chair of one of the co-chairs of the expert group for CSW 67 that Ellen was talking about, and also worked in partnership with her and a variety of other colleagues on this call on putting a feminist approach to the Global Digital Compact. All right, next slide, please. We know that the AI revolution is creating power structures that are going to last for generations. And right now, these systems are being built without women's perspectives. So we have to act immediately on a feminist AI, not as a theoretical exercise, but as an essential corrective, I think, to a dangerously unbalanced technological future. So feminist AI is pro-social AI, created with inclusion at its core, to create new opportunities and innovative corrections to existing inequities. So rather than simply pursuing technical accuracy or efficiency, feminist AI focuses on bringing social programs in line with 21st century research and values, instead of just taking things invented in the 50s and 60s, supercharging them with Excel. We want to rethink and use this opportunity to really understand how we can use the technology to advance our shared goals of gender equality. So this makes it fundamentally a transformative idea that changes, that challenges and questions power imbalances rather than codifying them in the tech, that centers the experiences of those traditionally excluded from technological development. It creates AI systems that actively repair rather than replicate structural inequalities, and its ideas to measure success by a positive social impact, not just technical performance or metrics. Next slide. So we're going to unlock innovative potential through investment. But if we see the current investment landscape reveals this stark failure that actually directly suppresses innovation. So we look at venture capital, which is sort of stalled, as Ellen mentioned in her slides, at 2% for quite some time. It's actually fallen in the past year to 1% of venture capital that go to female founders, which is quite extraordinary. We also see that women comprise only 13% of inventors on international patent applications. As women are much more likely to participate in large academic teams rather than filing as solo patent holders. So it isn't really just an equity problem, it's an innovation crisis, in our opinion. When we exclude women's perspectives, we miss the groundbreaking solutions that could transform healthcare, particularly given that women's health has not been studied separately from the default male model, even today in 2025. Urban planning, education, climate resilience, and the innovations that we need most urgently need to come from those who directly experience the problems, as I'm sure we all agree. So when we consider the untapped potential, women inventors are more likely to develop technologies that address previously neglected needs. And these innovations frequently cross disciplines, combining insights from different fields, a more socio-technical approach to create novel solutions that might otherwise go undiscovered. Next slide. So one of the ways that we're focused on this is on catalyzing feminist innovation ecosystems. In order to foster breakthrough innovations in feminist tech, we think that we need to build these ecosystems through creating dedicated investment funds specifically for feminist AI, with success metrics that value the social innovation along with a financial return. Establishing specialized accelerators focused on also feminist technology that provide mentorship, technical support, market access. Funding collaborative platforms where technologists work alongside social scientists, ethicists, community representatives, all in equal and a flat hierarchy, and to launch public competitions with substantial rewards for feminist solutions to the pressing global challenges. Next slide. For AI to deliver these equality outcomes, inclusion has to be at the core from conception through deployment. And ways to accomplish this that are fundamental, as Elaine also talked about, everything working in balances and an ecosystem. We have to look at our data sets clearly. We can mandate balanced representative data sets that accurately represent the diverse population, certainly from the UN's point of view. For participation, to fund research methodologies that center affected communities in the design process from the get-go. To require rigorous pre-release testing and model experimentation for biases across multiple dimensions of identity, of intersectionality, and also to support a standardized impact assessments that could make gender considerations visible, like gender impact assessments, which I'll get to a bit later. Next slide. So in our thinking, its procurement is the transformative advantage here. We know that the UN and the public sector both possess extraordinary leverage through procurement that remains largely untapped. We see that in developing countries in the global south, or LMCs, we see that up to 30% of GDP is deployed through procurement. Public sector procurement, and that the UN procurement just itself exceeds 19 billion annually. So every dollar strategically directed creates multiplier effects through market signals. By embedding feminist principles into procurement requirements, we create immediate market incentives that can transform the entire AI ecosystem. And there's been a lot of guidance from UN Women, from International Trade Center, also the World Bank, on really how to do this, and lots of methodologies. There's been plenty of research. We just haven't deployed it. Really, next slide. This is really the call to action, because if the UN doesn't do this, all of these advances, the few advances, but not enough advances that we've made, are really just going to be slammed out of reality. So we can establish mandatory gender impact assessments for all UN procured digital technologies. We should do this tomorrow. We can create dedicated funding mechanisms specifically for feminist AI ventures that deal with these systemic problems that also interrogate power to create new value for communities. We can deploy, as we know, through temporary special through CEDAW, we know through temporary special measures, we can do preferential procurement targets. This is actually codified international law, as you all know. And we can do it for technologies that are developed through these feminist principles to benefit communities, and also leverage UN's convening power to try to standardize some of these frameworks in procurement. So the question, in our opinion, is not whether we can afford to invest in a feminist AI, feminist technologies, whatever the new emerging technology is, but whether we can afford not to. The technological architecture being built today will definitely determine the power structures for generations to come, and the choices are to choose transformation or not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you to the three of you for three very strong calls to action. We're going to head into our expo, which we'll have to unfortunately cut short, which I'm very sorry about, but we still want to make sure that you get to hear from these amazing digital projects. So let me introduce to you how this will run. we will unfortunately cut them short in from 20 to 10 minutes, which will feel maybe a little bit like speed dating, but I still hope it'll be informative. So the way we'll do this is we'll give a very brief 30-second pitch by presenters of what they'll be presenting in the breakout rooms. You'll see very clearly on your screen which room hosts which initiative. It will be on the bottom of your Zoom screen, so you can enter them once we've opened them. In the session, this will be different. Your host will give a brief presentation, and then hopefully there's time for questions, even though we have less time available. And with that, I want to hand over to the first breakout host. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you so much, Julia. So my name is Caroline Mespungi. I work with UNICEF. I lead our portfolio on technology and innovation for gender-based violence globally. So if you want to know more about LAHA, so basically what we did with LAHA, because of technology facilitated GBV, as we heard, is silencing women, widening the gender digital gap, and making online spaces unsafe. We wanted to change that. And so we built LAHA, which is essentially a femtech innovation built through a feminist and human-centered design approach. So it was co-created with women and girls and for women and girls. And it's more than just a platform. It is a movement to reclaim digital spaces for women and girls and their empowerment. We fostered, safety at the center of our design, access to critical resources, including services, and really survivor-centered support to make LAHA intangible differences in the lives of women and girls globally. So if you join me in the breakout room, I'll tell you more about it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That will be breakout room 1. And then for 2, handing over to Noor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noor. I'm from UNFPA, India. I'm a state program analyst here. So today in my breakout room, we'll be talking about a system that we've developed along with the state government. So we've seen that in the current context in a world where GBV response to gender-based violence continues to be rooted in patriarchal power structures, it comes across as the victims are criminals, the institutions and systems seem like confining prisons, and the process of help seeking becomes a punishment. So in that context, we've developed a system which has the potential to alter those power structures, where the response to GBV becomes about humanizing the survivor, about dignifying the survivor's trauma, and about strengthening the collective so that she isn't alone in her fight. So in this breakout room, we'll go over how blockchain technology has been used in the system.
Thank you so much, Noor. And then for the final short pitch, over to you, Aisha.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Aisha Koluba from Women Liberia office, and I'm excited to share our work on digital inclusion. Over the years, we've worked with Orange Liberia, the Ministry of Gender, Social and Protection. We have been leveraging technology to improve women's financial inclusion, connecting women to market, enhancing the access to finance and promoting renewable energy. So over the past 3 years, we've worked with women farmers and entrepreneurs, providing them with financial literacy and digital literacy tools so that they could have control over their finances and improve their economic well-being. So join us in our breakout room to know more about how we'll be working with the women farmers. We have an innovative e-commerce platform that we've provided for them to advertise their goods, which can really help them to reduce farm-to-market losses. So join in our breakout room and see how we've been using technology to improve women's economic empowerment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So you've heard there's lots to explore. The breakout rooms are open now. We'll bring you back in 10 minutes. So like I said, it will be a little bit like speed dating. But yeah, pick your breakout now. If you need any help to get there, you can let me know in the chat. But you should be able to just pick it in the menu on the bottom of your screen.